Good. You well?
Yeah. The plate overfloweth. Just fudge. So people like Naveen, who just joined, have really been stepping up. It was just really helps.
Yeah, I was gonna Naveen pinged me about the console adapter, and I'd love to take you up on that dude. And from what we spoke about as well, I'm gonna feed that back up to Nina and stuff, and we'll try and get that stuff like rolling. Seems really good. Spoke to the team yesterday, and they're like really keen to get stuff rolling along. So I think they realize the limitations of leaving it up to Jackson and never having the time to do it. So, but yeah, we'll try and get that. I will apologize in advance. I might have to jump out of the call at some point. Somebody's been trying to pin me down to give them some help, and I've just finished up some stuff. So I do apologize, but I thought I'd just join in the time I could say hello with everybody.
Yeah, I don't mean to, yeah, I think you made my Friday already. So, yeah, I had a calendar reminder to myself yesterday for some of the things that we've yet to, or that are still on our agenda. So I actually don't mean to bring it up to make a false promise betwixt the two of us, because we both suffer from it. But
yeah, we should sort that. Let's try chat maybe Tuesday or so next week, and we'll get that stuff planned in, because I'd like to do that too, and do the YouTube video and show off some mattress stuff. I think that'd be great.
And I'm gonna try to hold myself accountable to putting together a potential outline or a stuff to help. I think I said that last time we met. So yeah. Good. Well, now that it's been publicly recorded, all of my failures, all of my shortcomings, not that wasn't obvious before. Nice. Whoa, we are 3 minutes in. Got a number of folks here. Roll call and housekeeping items. Housekeeping items. Meeting minutes are in the chat. Or will be. Welcome to today's community call. What is it, the 27th, 24th of April. The 27th is top of mind for me because we'll be having a discussion with, UT Austin and maybe some Googlers on performance on Monday. It's about time to kick up a new working group around performance. Actually, let's come back to that. That's kind of an agenda item. But welcome everyone. We do record our community meetings, so they'll be up on YouTube for later viewing and later heckling. Do note that the community meeting minutes are a community effort. Please jump on in, make your notes. If you do have agenda items, go ahead and pack them on. There's much to discuss. We generally start off there. I expect we might have some new folks this time around. I don't know if we. I think even including. Yeah, I think I'm trying to recount, but very pleased to see Karthik here. So Karthik, thanks for being here. Actually, Karthik, maybe.
Yep. Happy to be here.
Oh yeah, maybe just if only because we only had a 25-person turnout for your presentation on Wednesday. So I think you got introduced to most folks, but there's a couple of people on the call that might not be familiar with these. Do you want to do an introduction?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Karthik. I'm part of Maya Data and I'm the maintainer of the Litmus Chaos project. Really happy to be in this community and learn more about how we can work together with the machine learning community in general.
Yeah. For my part, thank you, Karthik. For my part, I'm stoked in a couple of ways that Karthik is here. One, if for nothing else, Karthik has helped make Meshery very bright and starry. And by that, I mean the number of stars on the project have leaped this week, in part in thanks to Karthik and to Calvin, to Kush, to Naveen, to all of you actually. But anyway, we had a significant jump this week. It really meaningful to the project. We're going to talk about that. Dhruv, I think you might have gotten to introduce before. I don't know if you were having audio challenges at the time. So Mr. Agrawal, if you're there and you're able to talk, do you want to do a quick introduction? And Dhruv, I in part remember that you might have introduced before only because I'm so tentative about how to pronounce your first name. So anyway, if you are able to introduce, please do, just to interrupt. Otherwise, we'll keep going here. Oh, yep, very good, understood. Very good to have you here, though. So Dhruv, by the way, has already landed his first PR, which is great. Dhruv ran into some of the same issues that each of us do occasionally with the developer, what is it, the DCO, the contributors kind of license agreement. And part of, we're also going to talk about that today in the spin up of a CI working group. Very good. Let me go over a couple of announcements and then hopefully stop talking so that other people can. All right. Be sure to record your attendance if you can. In part, that will become potentially important going forth as we begin to establish, as the community scales, as we begin to establish some further governance and some additional roles and kind of how those roles work and responsibility of those roles, as we establish something of a contributor ladder. Part of that and how how the community and the projects will function will be based on a bit of a meritocracy, so a bit of not a what have you done for me lately kind of a thing, but more, I think, an acknowledgement that people will come and go, or their time will be available and won't be available. So as people take on roles in the community, part of those roles are time bound based on things like showing up to a meeting. So anyway, my point is record your attendance. We got a bunch of new folks that have joined the community this week, which is great, from various places. Lidor is one of those. And Lidor, you'll correct it if it's Lidor. I just can't remember. Not that I want to show any favoritism, but I'm particularly stoked that Lidor's here.
Yes, it's Lido. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I'm come from Israel, by the way.
And then, I don't remember. I know you were able to introduce on Wednesday, but if you haven't, this is your first time on the community call, right? So there's a couple of new folks to meet. Do you want to say a couple of words?
Sorry, can you repeat? I just lost it.
Do you want to do another quick introduction? Because there's some different people on today's call.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lidor. Nice to meet everyone. I just joined this week. intelligence methods, working with Python, Groovy, eager to learn new technology, and hopefully I can bring some input to Meshery. And yeah, that's all about. Yeah, maybe I miss some. Yeah, I also like to write some blogs. So yeah, it will be one of my goal also to bring something to the community and also maybe to publish it later for everyone else.
Okay. Hold on, let me. I'm going to take a note on that, Lior. We're going to. Okay, and we'll. Going to make a public commitment on this call that will happen. So good.
Sure. I like commitment.
You know, there's actually one out there that I feel really poorly about. A Docker captain, Luke Juggery, had recently kind of joined the community. He'd been a bit interested in getting Meshery running on Raspberry Pis. And so he had contributed to the community by making sure that the binaries that are being produced are compatible with that architecture. And anyway, he'd written up a blog and it was somewhat extensive. And I've failed him miserably in terms of like providing commentary and review. So I think he's sort of been waiting for half a week before he publishes. And so I thought I would, if I can find it while we're on the call, I might send it over so that others can help in the review. I'll find it and we'll get it, but that's great. So.
Great.
All right. The announcements always go slower than I want. I feel like I always end up making the whole damn meeting about me, and it's not. So quickly, let's talk about the fact that Meshery hit its 300-star mark, which for some projects happens like the day that they're announced, and for other projects it's a lot of elbow grease, sweat, and trying to harass people into showing up to meetings and things like that. We hit the 300 mark. It's fantastic. It's okay. I just wanted to make sure there was nobody waiting to join the meeting. It's fantastic in so much as that had been the milestone by which the project could go into the CNCF landscape. And so Asuko, one of the community members, is taking Meshery there. So it should be. I expect it'll probably be up later today. It's great. So thank you all for that. There's a Layer5 community calendar, which has been there for about, I don't know, a year or so, and it ends up having. I wanted to call it out because there's a few different meetings that are. Let me actually do that. A few different meetings that are recurring, and so most of us know about the one on Wednesday and today's, and then going forward, we'll end up having. Another one recurring, it's the CI working group. We occasionally have one-off meetings that are also scheduled on here. I think I went ahead and put the CNCF SIG network meeting on this same community calendar because we end up talking about many of the same things. And I actually have a mind to take what would be the upcoming performance working group and maybe run that in context of the CNCF SIG. Because we do that would be to advance a collaborative specification. So I'll talk about it in a minute. Point being, maybe if you want to subscribe to the community calendar or take a peek occasionally, there may be some interesting meetings. There's a couple of programs that we're looking for this community to engage in. One of those that we have last year and are this year is Google Summer of Code. We talked about it the last couple of weeks. There are a couple different projects that have been proposed for Meshery's participation in Google Summer of Code. Really the two that are up there, one of them is around SMI and Meshery being a conformance tool for SMI. And we've gotten a few proposals on that. The other one is around distributed performance testing and the incorporation of the expansion of Meshry's capabilities beyond use, a singular sort of use of Fort.io or WRK2, but to potentially incorporate use of Envoy's Nighthawk and do so in a distributed way such that there are multiple load generators all generating load at different rates at different times and coalescing that information. So that's one of the projects. The other project is SMI conformance. We're going to go ahead and join the community bridge as well because that's now a thing. Not that community bridge is now a thing. That was announced a year ago. I think Chaim was at the same conference that I was at where community bridge was announced. And by the way, if you don't know Chaim, who's on the call, he's the CTO at Octarine, and is also the maintainer of the Octarine adapter for Meshry. And also, those guys had recently released CubeScan as an open source tool, along with kind of a spec. We've talked about it in these calls before, so sorry to be digressing each of these times. I think it's kind of good to make sure that everybody is familiar with everybody here. We're looking to participate in Season of Docs. So, Kush, do you want to talk about this a bit?
So Season of Docs is much like Google Summer of Code. Both of them have different timeline, like when Google Summer of Code ends and Google Summer of Docs starts. Basically, Google Summer of Docs is an invitation to all the technical writers to write the documentation for the coming softwares and the ongoing softwares which are lacking in documentation. Also, we can also make them write some tutorials or API documentation using Swagger, etc. So we are looking to participate in Google Summer of Docs as a separate organization, not in the CNCF. As Layer 5, we are going to apply, and we'll see if we can make it up.
Very good. Here, I thought I was sharing the screen the whole time, and I guess I'm not. To further what Kush had said, there's one item that could be quite interesting in context of Season of Docs, and actually sort of looking at Nick Jackson, who's on the call. HashiCorp has a great example of providing user tutorials and facilitating learning of their products. There is the occasional open source project that does some similar works, but not all that often. There's a ton to learn around service meshes and Meshry itself and kind of the user flows that users go through. Part of Kush's thinking here is that we might be able to leverage. Let me find a link. Or let me just find a different example. So there's a friend of mine, Alois Reitbauer of Dynatrace, has been stewarding an open source project called, it's Enunciated Captain. That project took and is leveraging, was it Google's Code Labs, I think, as a framework for producing tutorials. And so in a similar fashion, it would be wonderful. It would be wonderful. We were, go ahead. Oh, there it is. So Blake is with us as well. We're just talking about some of the wonderful things that HashiCorp does. So Kush is getting Layer 5 into Season of Docs. I think that was kind of the main point, and part of that, hopefully, we'll get some tutorials going. And it looks like there's another framework which might be a better CMS, a better training system than the one I was mentioning. I don't know. Okay, shoot. All right, so I think we covered all the announcements. Let me try to shut my yapper. Any other comments on the topics that we have before we move into topics? Okay. Shivai, I think you're up. And Shivai, hopefully you're in a place where you might be able to talk. Yep, sounds like connections. Yeah, very good. All right, let's circle back. Maybe Shivai, just interrupt if and when you get audio, video figured out. Next topic up was, is something we've been talking about for a while. It's a continuous integration working group. The community is kind of reshapes at various points in time, depending upon how many folks are here and what they're capable of and what they're interested in and kind of what the needs of the project are and all these factors. All of those factors currently have aligned to the need to expand into another weekly meeting or another working group focused on continuous integration. There's much to automate, and that automation happens in a bunch of ways. We're fortunate that Adina and Saim have continually expressed a bunch of interest in this area and are capable community members stepping in to be co-leads for this working group. We recently did a survey about when to meet and what would be the most convenient. This time won out. Actually, it's basically the same time that we meet on Fridays. If you're interested in participating, please just see the community calendar and grab the invite. There is an initial set of topics, and the list is kind of long about items that this working group can take on and how to prioritize. As Adina and Saim and the rest of us can wrap our minds around all these topics, the group will be self-prioritizing and self-assigning. So, Adina, Saim, do you guys have comments, things to talk about here, things to say? Initial priorities that you consider need to be hit?
No, I'm just happy you proposed me, so yeah, it is in my area of interest. Actually, it's my major area, so yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And the time that you choose is perfect. So for me, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's perfect.
Oh, perfect. Very good. Just before beer 30, I guess. So that's good. If as a community, as a member of the community, and someone to vote on kind of priorities that might be addressed initially in that working group, is really one around establishing release channels. And there is, I won't kind of go into it further other than to say it's desperately needed, and there is forethought as to how all of this comes together. And so Adina and Saim and the rest of the community, I expect we'll probably be spending a bit more time sort of in this doc, iterating, hopefully arriving at what will become controlled releases or an improvement upon the control of those releases. Any other comments on the CI working group? Okay, very good. At the same, go ahead.
Is this CI related to mesh deployment or any other open source deployment?
It will. It'll end up including service mesh deployment, because part of that continuous integration, part of the topics that the CI working group would take on is integration testing. And so since Meshry does lifecycle management of various service meshes. Integration testing means, facilitating for the automation of deployment of those meshes and verification that Meshry is standing them up in a healthy way.
Okay, fine. So who has control over that? CI/CD tool. Is there any particular group or public any user can have?
Yeah, there is. You're right on the ground floor of it. Actually, this coming Monday, that set of people kind of interested in those topics will meet for the first time on Monday, same time as this meeting. Adina and Saim, who are on the call, these two folks are going to be spending a lot of time kind of focused on this. And so they're good people to ping. I think in part to answer your question, there is, today the project leverages GitHub Actions and various workflows facilitated through GitHub Actions to do a variety of things.
Okay, fine. Actually, I got few invitations related to these meetings, but the documentations were not attached with that meeting invitation.
Right.
If you attach the form, it will be easy to understand.
Yeah, let me take a note on that. I think boy, I'm gonna spot it, but Pendi Raja, yeah, I think part what needs to happen is we need to identify the difference between the community meeting, the development meeting, the CI meeting now, and their topics, kind of their goals and focus. There's a little bit of that implicitly described in their meeting minutes, but we need to do better, and we need to get that up on in the readmes in the various public facing repos.
Okay.
But yeah, you're totally. As a matter of fact, so we're the next couple of topics are about establishing at least one other meeting focused on performance, which has been kind of a long-standing area, feature area for Meshry, long-standing area of interest for Meshry's users. Someone had asked me recently, actually it was a service provider or a principal engineer at a service provider. Comcast was asking about the number of other users of Meshry. And so quick, I've kind of long promised a bunch of statistics that we would present, and I just keep not being able to get to it. But there have been, to date, about a little over 400 individual users of Meshry, or at least users who have decided to authenticate socially to Meshry. And so, yeah, there's a stat for you. There's a public-facing statistic about how many performance tests that people have run and sent in the results for, which I think it just grew past 700 last week. So performance has been a long-standing focus of the project, something that users are very interested in. It's time for us to give earnest effort to advancing this vendor-neutral specification about measuring performance. We've been in partnership with UT Austin and Google, the Istio performance lead, on what that spec looks like. I wonder if this working group, I was saying earlier, if it wouldn't necessarily be even more appropriate to establish this within context of the CNCF SIG network, because it is intended to be such a collaborative thing. For those that are here representing other service meshes, of which I know that there are at least 2 on the call, this is very much so a call for participation in this spec. We will send out an email much more broadly describing what that spec is and the efforts around it. Many of you have heard from me on this topic before, but there will be some new. There will be hopefully a broadcast of call for interest. So in context of this same performance working group, outside of the spec, there's also one of the Google Summer of Code projects that I was mentioning before. Kush or Naveen or Shivai, Kanishkar, do you guys want to speak to what this is? Kind of re-articulate this particular effort? Because at this point, I'm actually sick of hearing myself talk. So I know everyone else is sick of hearing.
Lee, one question on the
Yeah.
GSOC. The release of the result will be on 4th of May, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll pull it up.
Yeah. So when so some of my friends were asking that when we should begin the submission for the community bridge.
Yeah, great question about. And Raj, do you mean like just in general, or specifically in context of Layer 5?
Yeah, Layer 5 also in general context, because you
Yeah. So the date. Yep. Very good. Let me share this. So a couple of quick words about Community Bridge. It is similar to, or as of most recently, Community Bridge has been expanded to incorporate. Actually, this is funny. It says it right here. Has been expanded to incorporate a mentorship program. Previously, that wasn't the case. Community Bridge was initially created as a place to facilitate a few common needs that projects have. Probably the most notable being about sponsorship of projects themselves or individuals. It kind of expanded after that to sponsorship of events that people might be putting on. So, basically CNCF meetups and the like. And now it has recently, and also the other common things that projects have needed are security assessments. And so both Sneak and HackerOne had been engaged, I think, as vendors to help provide some of those common services to projects that were participating through Community Bridge. Recently, this Community Bridge has expanded to include a bit of a mentorship program like that of Google Summer of Code. The work that Meshri is doing with SMI fits in well here. And so we'll be, for Meshri's part, coming into submitting this week. I think the deadline.
So is 24th is the deadline, is it?
Deadline depends upon different projects, like Linux Foundation Networking had deadline of 24th April. CNCF has mentioned the deadline of 4th May. So we
Okay.
can have around 6th May, and it specifically depends upon the term project is following. There are also two terms, full-time. The part-time term goes around till October or November, and the full-time term goes around till August, similar to the Google Summer of Code period.
Okay.
Thank you, Kush. I think in part of having a hard time crisply answering because of what Kush had said, which is I've seen the dates move around based on specific project participation. So this deadline specifically moved out a little bit, which is helpful. All right, where were we?
Yeah, are we planning to participate in the CNCF as umbrella organization, or we are planning to participate with SMI and Layer 5 separately?
At CNCF as an umbrella organization through Google Community Bridge.
Then our deadline is 4th May, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it's confusing. I don't know. I think Nick probably just got the same email earlier today saying that the deadline's been extended. And so, Hell if I know, but let's do it this week and be done with it. Okay, very good.
Thanks, Lee.
Oh yeah, very good. And Raj, actually, I think that's probably the next topic was a bit of alluding to the notion that that we are on the precipice of kind of being ready to potentially earnestly engage in chaotic things, and that I think we're just about to the point in the community and in the maturity of this project to move into, to establish a working group and kind of move into that more earnestly. In advance, I think what I wanted to do today was make a call for interest, a call for participation. There's a document out here, hardly a design spec, more of just the initial flushing of concepts and some ideas that are very much so in need of help. There've been, and so yeah, so if you're interested, please jump into the doc. We'll help iterate some. I know Karthik and Raj, I've probably owe you guys maybe some thoughts on beyond what's written in that doc about some chaotic things that we would look to facilitate. Other than
Yes. Yes, we are looking to that talk. So Karthik, we have created on STO. So Karthik can explain.
Yeah, I just took a look at this from the recording of the previous call, Lee. So I did get some initial ideas. So I was able to read some of your thoughts regarding what's there under the ideas section. Probably what would be more helpful is what do you think are the next steps that that you're planning around chaos? Is there some kind of a POC you're looking at, or is there some more information being put into this document that you're looking at, more questions, etc.?
Yeah, good question. A POC is probably one of those appropriate next steps for. So for me personally, I can say that I am in need of delivering an official review of Chaos Mesh in terms of their adoption or not into the CNCF. I can type and talk at the same time. And so for sure, I personally need to spend some time there as part of that. I expect that might help flush out some additional thoughts in this doc.
Sure.
Beyond being able to state that affirmative or like with confidence, I think that the next step, I would look to you and Raj or others in the community to potentially suggest a proof of concept or to perform a proof of concept that I would only hold people back based on the time that I have. But that you guys would be able to maybe advance some of those thoughts, do a POC in the meantime. That might be a good.
Sure. Probably we'll try to place some more thoughts as in the form of comments against this document.
Are there others here that are interested in chaos? That others that have been on Meshry that want to give a crack at expanding this doc or at a proof of concept? And I'm not calling out any names because I know there's a few of you who've got a fair bit on your plate already in terms of things that you're doing on Meshery. So this is one of those areas where it's something that's long been desired, and we've yet to we're just on the verge, I think, of scaling into it. The reason that it's come up right now is because of the timing of Litmus Chaos and Chaos Mesh kind of going into the CNCF, and so in part some forced focus of mine towards that, and in part kind of an opportunistic time to sort of resurface the interest. Okay, well, so minimally what will happen is, well, I already have a bunch of notes that are not public because those notes are a bit more comparative in nature about the projects. And since comparisons are sensitive, and since the notes are quick notes that don't have sensitive statements, that isn't public. But the point being is that's spending that time there, I think will help because I will help flush out this doc a little bit better. I will say this, just in thinking aloud with you guys, is that the value, probably the true value of integrating something like Litmus Chaos with Meshery is much about the things that Meshery doesn't have. So the thing that Meshery will have is very service mesh specific knowledge, use cases, experiments, kind of chaos to create, some of which it can go directly to, as I think Karthik, as you had said on Wednesday, that Meshery can go directly to the service meshes to facilitate, because not all of them, but many of the service meshes sort of inherently facilitate for network-centric chaos.
Right.
But what they're missing, and what Meshery is missing, are some things that Litmus Chaos brings to the table, and that's things like scheduling, like the concept of an experiment, the concept of the collection and kind of presentation of results. There's any number of, and I'm only touching on a couple, but there's a number of concerns that Litmus Chaos as a project is addressing, and capabilities that you're bringing forward that are are missing and highly needed. And so my point, I think, is that it's potentially less about having service mesh specific, a bunch of like predefined service mesh specific chaos, and it's more probably about the runner that you guys have and how that works, the SDK around the ability to create new chaos types and new experiment types, the scheduling of those, the collection of those results. Like it's the broader framework that's much.
Got it. Makes sense, Lee. Yeah, thanks for elaborating.
Okay, very good. Hey, Shivai, are you aim? Okay, Shivai, do you have audio?
He's not on the call, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. So we continue to struggle to get to this release, and the release just gets bigger and bigger. I almost feel like we should skip from .3 to .5. Okay. Part of what will be included in this release is a different topic that we can talk about, which is to date, everyone's hopefully familiar with the fact that when you go to log into Meshery, I'll try to bring it up and see if that you will often see a provider interface. Providers are a concept in Meshery that we expect that's really designed as an extension point that hopefully will be those. There's a forthcoming kind of list of providers here. The default one, it was called Meshery, was up until yesterday was using cookies for managing individual user sessions. That's fine for web-based clients that many of us use to interact with Meshery. But if you recall Meshery's architecture, a web-based client is one of a couple of different types of clients of Meshery's API. So there's the Meshery UI, this web-based client, and there's Meshery CTL, which as we go to establish the performance working group, Meshery CTL's capabilities and users' abilities to leverage Meshery in a headless way become really important, because the groups like Google and those that are helping, that are building Istio and those that are from HashiCorp, for example, that are building Console, as they go to hopefully incorporate Meshery into some of the release processes, and they're automatically assessing the performance of those service meshes. Their ability to ideally do that in what would be a programmatic, in a headless way, sort of incorporated into each of those projects' continuous integration workflows, that cookies that are that leverage local storage inside of a browser and that kind of thing don't really work so great for other types of clients. And so yesterday, the Meshery provider moved from, and hence Meshery itself, the server, moved from use of cookies as a vehicle for managing sessions and moved to JWT as that vehicle, as that mechanism. So thanks much to Kanishkar, who I think is on the call, and who has presented the sort of the workings of JWT and how it is that Meshery is using that, how it is that it interfaces with these various clients, interface and use JWT. I think, I know it's been presented a time or two. I expect, given the lack of a bunch of questions on it, I expect that there might be a point in time where we would want to set that up as another topic to kind of rehash and go through. But I bring it up because that's part of this upcoming release and is significant and helpful to unlocking Meshery's incorporation into each of those service mesh projects. So there's that as part of the .4 release. Saurabh has recently joined the community and been working on some new things in Meshery CTL, improving some of its behavior. Saurabh, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask if you want to speak to some of those.
Sorry, Lee, I didn't got your point.
Yeah, like of your recent pull requests and how you've augmented Meshery CTL's behavior. Do you want to? I figured, for lack of any other agenda items, that we might put you on the spot and say, hey, do you want to demo those new behavior changes so they don't surprise people?
I think we can do that in future when there are some more major changes, so we can discuss them together. So what we are doing is we are like changing how we interact with the Meshery CLI. So how we pass on the flags and how it gives the output. So how, like, we can discuss how else we can update the other flags also. Like we also discussed about K8s and Docker, which platform we have to use.
Yep, it's a good, yeah, and yep. I think given the multiple conversations that we've had, I might be conflating two things. So Saurabh is alluding to the notion that at some point Meshery CTL will have additional commands that it doesn't have today. A lot of the commands that you see are for purposes of helping the user manage Meshery as an application. So the cleanup command, the logs command, start, status, stop, update, and version. These are commands that let the user manage Meshery. And that's good. But what's much more interesting is this burgeoning command around letting people do performance management from the CLI. Sarb was just mentioning Kubernetes and Docker and other platforms, that there would be a forthcoming command to let people perform service mesh lifecycle management. So to install a console from the CLI here, to install the sample apps, to do a lot of the things that you're able to do through the UI, but do them on the CLI. Both the UI and the CLI use the REST API of Meshery. Of some things that were recently done, I think, the latest version of Meshery CTL is 0.3.14. Two recent behavior changes that have happened here. One of those was, this is probably an interesting thing to describe, and that's that some but not all of you are aware of the fact that Meshery CTL as a program and Meshery server as an app will, by default, will leverage a bit of file system storage within your user's home directory by default. And that's just like many other programs, that ends up being a hidden folder in your user's home directory. There are kind of two things that probably all of you would see if you were to run a similar command. And let's just talk about one of them right now. And that's the meshery.yaml. So by default, when you run, Meshery is capable of being deployed on Kubernetes. And as an application there are Kubernetes manifests available to do that. Meshery is also available to be deployed as a Docker application using Docker Compose. And if you look at the meshery.yaml, you'll note that you're really nothing more than a Docker Compose file. It is on occasion that people do have, there's use cases for manipulating the Docker Compose file, this meshery.yaml file. And actually, at a virtual meetup last week, I gave an example of why people might want to do that. We were demonstrating Meshery's ability to deploy Istio in a multi-cluster fashion. And in order to do that, I was spinning up multiple Istio adapters. And in order to do that, I was modifying this Docker Compose YAML. I was adding additional Istio adapters. Now, when I do that, it may be the case that I would want to reset Meshery CTL and basically reset Meshery back to its default configuration. And today there's a command called Meshery CTL cleanup. Now that command name probably really does need to be changed to just Meshery CTL reset, which is to reset that Docker Compose file back to its original state. That original state is version controlled inside of Meshery's the Meshery repo in GitHub. It doesn't go by the same name, but it goes by Docker Compose here during the build process. And as you go to run Meshery on your local machine, the name of that file is just meshery.yaml, but it's the same file. And so by running Meshery, I'm sorry, I thought I was sharing Let's go to full screen. So to kind of quickly recount that, what I was saying is, if you run Meshery CTL start today, that will start up a Docker Compose instance on your local machine and run Meshery locally with all of the containers that you're familiar with currently. People will also deploy Meshery to Kubernetes, which is one of the things that Saurabh was alluding to, is that in the future there'll be something like a Meshery CTL. Instead of just a start, maybe the command would change, or maybe there would be flags like P for platform Kubernetes, instead of just assuming that it's Docker Compose. And then part of that too, that there may be a Meshery CTL mesh, T for type, maybe that, console. That the command set needs to expand. That a lot of Meshery already has these capabilities. They're just not exposed in Meshery CTL. So there is a design spec there for what that structure looks like and how to make it best bring forth the best user experience. Speaking of user experience, there's much, there's some inspiration and some integration to take place with a tool like Shipyard. And since
I just pinged you a private note there because I was just thinking out loud to myself in that I could probably make Shipyard expose an embeddable API. So rather than using Docker Compose from the Meshery CLI, you could use the Shipyard as a library. And if you use Shipyard as a library, it gives you the ability to kind of do all of the things like deploying Helm charts, using the Kubernetes constructs, and being able to create Kubernetes clusters and things like that as first-class configuration citizens, but also being able to take into account the dependency management, which like you've got to wait for a kube cluster to create before you can install a Helm chart, etc. So it's just an idea. I literally thought could be interesting.
I think it's super interesting. It's been a topic of discussion for a little while. It kind of goes by various names. Meshsicle or Asuko has called it mesh cattle. I'm not sure. Is everyone else getting the? And so to Nick's point, we've been going around spending kind of hours and hours talking about the incorporation of a component, called Meshsicle or Mesh Infra or something, and how it is that it sources Helm charts and manipulates those and renders that chart from a Helm chart into Kubernetes manifests, so that we sort of universally interface with Kubernetes through manifests and in a bit more Kubernetes native way. Not that Helm isn't Kubernetes native, but or isn't Kubernetes specific, rather. This, for all the discussion that we've had here, we've yet to even raise up the concept of dependency management, or ensuring that one step in a flow is completed before the next. So, Nick, your suggestion is quite well received. Actually, and Asuko is one of the community members that's been focused on this. So I'm going to take a note to try to connect these dots. Holy smokes, it's 11 o'clock. I didn't even realize. Look at that. Look at that. I think I'm about to lose my voice because I've been talking for an hour. I keep mentioning this because honestly, like, I'm going to work with a few of you in advance next week. Other people will be presenting. It will not be me. Any last thoughts before we sign off for the day? Many announcements to put out actually from things that have been done in the community, which is in part why I was so excited about Lidor talking about a blog post, because clearly I'm incapable of, there's only 10 fingers here, and there are many more of you that are more capable than me in this regard. There was a joke that I tried to make with Blake a little while ago when it was about 3 weeks ago, HashiCorp had announced its joining to the CNCF, which was a phenomenal thing. There was a nice blog post written up about it. And the joke that I was trying to make with Blake was that in that same press release, it was also announced that Layer5 joined the CNCF. So we sort of co-joined at the same moment, same time. And Blake, I don't know if you were aware of that at the time, so I don't think my joke came off really poorly, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I was aware. I kind of assumed that you were Layer5 was already a member, and that HashiCorp was kind of late to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats.
Oh yeah, thanks. No, we it's a fashionable thing. I think was just sort of fashionably late. So. All right, fair enough. Yeah, but and so you can see that Layer5 didn't announce anything because hopefully folks like Shivai and others will be helping with those announcements. So on that, we're at the top of the hour. People have got other meetings. Thanks. It's great to see everybody this week. Same time next week. First CI working group meeting Monday, same time. Very good. Thank you all. Talk to everyone soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.